Hello, Ashman. Welcome back to small Umineko When Seagulls Cry. Let us find out what is inside the room. Cannon pulled a handkerchief out of his pocket. This was so that he wouldn't leave fingerprints on the door. His worst fears he realized. The police would want to investigate this room too. Which is why he should have more witnesses to the first opening of the door, the unsealing of it. He was then, he slowly pushed the door open. He was able to more clearly hear the sound of the television, which had been seeping out faintly this whole time. Eva was lying face up on the bed with his shoes still on. Kumasawa, who had fearfully entered after Cannon and who was hiding behind his back, screamed a short eek again when she saw Eva like that. Eva's shoes had been the first part of her that Cannon had seen, so the oddness of wearing shoes in bed was the first thing to strike him. But when Eva's head shifted into his line of sight, Cannon couldn't help but let out a short scream like Kumasawa. Right in the middle of Eva's forehead, something had been placed. Something was growing there. No. Right in the center of the forehead was an old-fashioned knife. That or some weapon like it was sticking out. The base of where it was stuck in, blood dripped down, staining the sheets on the other side bright red. Kumasawa's knees gave way once more, and she sank down on the floor. Her mouth kept flapping open and closed, but she couldn't even scream. Eva was dead, with some kind of weapon sticking out of her forehead. So the only people who were able to verify now that the chain was in place would be Kumasawa, Genji, and Cannon, all servants. No one else would be able to verify this fact. Both eyes were wide open, or were open wide. The image of a person who killed her must have been burned into them. The only mouth capable of naming that person had been shut for all eternity. And though her forehead was the last place they wanted to look, they couldn't tear their eyes from it. Right there, a weapon stuck into Eva's forehead, standing almost perfectly upright. And on the handle was a complicated design that you wouldn't expect to see on an ordinary weapon. That thing could be summed up with the word occult. It was a vulgar object, of a design that might have been some...
Hideyoshi-sama.
Eva was on top of her bed, but the other bed was empty. There was Hideyoshi. After taking a backward glance at Kumasawa, still on her knees and stupefied, he checked the bathroom just in case. At the moment he opened the door, he was greeted by steam and the sound of a shower. The bathroom was of the same familiar style as most hotel bathrooms. Taking a shower, a waterproof curtain was used to keep water from flying out. The waterproof curtain was half open. Lying tumbled down in the bathtub was Hideyoshi, completely naked with both eyes open. Pointed in right Cannon, just like Eva. The weapon with a demon-like design was stuck into his forehead. Since his head had been under the shower's hot water this whole time, his face wasn't half covered with filthy with blood like Eva's had been. The sight of him dead while still taking a shower was tragic enough. Just then, they heard Natsui's voice coming from the hall. It was probably coming of Genji.
またしてもこのような落書きが。この手紙は中には何と。
いえ、まだ読んでおりません。うかつに触らん方がいいですが、犯人の指紋が残っとるかもしれん。警察に渡した方がいい。
わざわざ手紙を残すくらいです。どうせ指紋など残っていません。
As Natsui said that, she picked up the envelope. Before checking its contents, she entered the room herself, where she found Eva dead.
Eva-san!
I wonder, have we got an update to the characters now? Yep. Found with a bed of a guest room inside the mansion. The weapon resembling an ice pick having been rammed into her forehead. The windows and the doors of the rooms were locked from the inside, and even the chain was set. No way could a human have killed her. Same way? Yep. Found in the bathroom of the same guest room that Heather was found in. The weapon resembling an ice pick having been rammed into his forehead, just like the same as Heather. Can't see either of them by looking through the gap in the door while the chain is set. Can't see and can't reach. Go on. Could a human have killed them then? So, I've mentioned before how out of everyone else, out of the 6, Kiri is the only one that possibly could have been faked with another body. So, these 2, one of them could possibly be faked. I was thinking, like with a retractable knife kind of style. Without removing the knife, there's no way of saying for certain that there is actually a wound in their head. Hideyoshi would be more difficult to be lying in the like shower the whole time. But if they don't visit the room again, it's conceivable that Eva is faked to death and like put fake blood over her face to remove her from the candidates of murder. But we will see. And I've mentioned this from Umineko When None. It's the doctor that would confirm their deaths. Yeah, so either the doctor would have to be on their side, or the doctor has to be out of the picture for someone to fake their death. Which is also part of the reason why I think the doctor will be removed in the somewhat near future. At least by the 4th or 5th night, I'd say.
奥様、こちらには秀吉様も。
これはむごいですな。
カナ、シャワーを止めてあげます。気の毒にも程があります。はい。
Cannon gripped his handkerchief, twisted the valve, turning off the shower. In the bathtub, a small jar of body soap had fallen with its cap off. It really looked like he'd been attacked while taking a shower. There's still a small splash of blood clinging to the white bathtub. A combination of red and white made a horrible contrast.
南條先生。わかったね。市販は出とらんな。守護硬直も始まっとらん。おそらく殺されてから1時間経ったかどうかというところだろう。しかしこのような柄の短い凶器で頭蓋骨を考えられん。
Nanjo checked their pulse and their pupils, making certain of their deaths once more. As Cannon watched this business-like treatment, he thought, couldn't you tell at a glance that they're dead without doing all that? Nanjo thought about removing the weapon, then decided it would be better to preserve the scene and hand it over to the police, so he left it alone. Making it so that he's the only one that can actually confirm their deaths. The close inspection of the base showed that it didn't have a blade. In fact, it was more conical than blade-shaped. Notice that, rather than a knife? It was more like a short-handled spear, something of a shape better suited for thrusting than slicing. Rather than a short spear, you might call it a thick ice pick. At any rate, after looking at the scene, no further words were needed to describe what a sort of terrible purpose such eerily designed weapons were originally made for. nor was it necessary to explain how they carried out their function. Their function is to turn people into unicorns. Natsui, hoping to escape the repulsive steam-filling bout. I'll start that again. Natsui, hoping to escape the repulsive steam filling the bathroom as soon as she could, covered her mouth with a handkerchief and dashed from the room. Just viewing their gruesome bodies for an instant had been enough to burn the image into her eyes. If she looked any longer, that image would surely remain in her vision for all eternity. The rising urge to vomit was exactly the same feeling she'd had that morning in the garden in the storehouse. For a while, Natsui couldn't help but stand with her back facing the guest room, fighting the sickness in her stomach. Too late? They could tell that those fiercely racing footsteps in the hallway belonged to George, even before he came dashing into the room. George and the other children had been waiting in the parlour. However, when they saw Genji speak to Natsui, when they saw her turn pale and fly out of the parlour, they'd felt a sense of foreboding. When they saw a large group of people gathered around the guest room, they were sure of it. Nope. Ellen didn't have to say anything. George's scream after he ran into the room told them everything they needed to know. Natsui touched George's shoulder with her hand, but he violently shook her off. George fell over beside her and buried his face in the bed in front of his mother's face, wailing. Then he pounded on the bed with his fist, over and over again. Bachelor had his back against the wall of the hallway. He was covering his eyes with his right hand and weeping without restraint. Of course, it's sad whenever anyone dies, no matter who it is. It is battle. Those left alone by the deaths of others were far more worthy of pity. One here now had lost someone close to them. George wasn't the only one to be pitied. However, George's pain was far greater than everyone else's. Maria tried to comfort Bachelor in a mechanical sounding voice. Bachelor violently wiped his tears.
もう二度と流さねえぜ。ああ、全然ダメだ。俺たちは魔女様に爪を食らってるわけだ。修正一方ってわけだ。
So to go on the offensive, you need to complete the riddle. Hold the sweetfish river along from my hometown. You seek for Golden Land, follow its path downstream in search of a key. To travel down it, and you'll see a village. In that village, look for the shore. It's you who will tell you all. There sleeps the key to the Golden Land. One who obtains the key must then travel to the Golden Land in accordance with these rules. So, I'm wondering if this first part is something that they need to do in order to solve the puzzle, and then stop the murders and win in effect, or if perhaps that first part has already been covered and Kinzo has already completed it, and that's how he has the key to then trigger the second phase.
そりゃダメだぜ。全然ダメだ。チェス盤がひっくり返っちまうぜ。野郎は俺たち羊が明日まで逃げる手段もなく怯えてるだけだろうと思ってるだろうよ。だからひっくり返すぜ。明日までこの島から逃げられねえのは野郎も同じだ。しょんべんちびりそうになりながら逃げ隠れするのは俺たちじゃねえ。野郎暴いてやるぜ。明日までに。いや明日なんか待たねえ。今夜だ。今夜中にそんな楽をつかみ上げてやら。
Given it time.
とにかく、この部屋は警察が来るまでこのままにして施錠します。いいですね。
Natsui announced it as though she didn't care whether they agreed or not. If anyone had a right to object, it would have been George. She looked as though he'd shed enough tears. George nodded silently, still facing away from the others. When he stood up, everyone else agreed too. Natsui still hadn't opened that western envelope of the family head that she'd picked up. Now that they decided to leave the stream, she decided to unseal it in the parlour, where everyone could watch. As soon as they walked out into the hallway to head back into the parlour, some of them immediately felt something out of place, or maybe sensed something strange.
答えよ。マリアもわかるか。こりゃ何の匂いだよ。ひでえ匂いだぜ。
Or when everyone sniffed the air, they did notice a horrible burnt smell drifting through the hallway. One that none of them had smelled until then.
私、ちょっと厨房を見てきます。火はちゃんと消したはずなんですよ。
After noticing a burnt smell, it was natural that Kumasawa, who had just been using the burner in the kitchen, suspected that her own slip-up had caused it. Kumasawa hastily dashed away.
カノン、熊沢と行きなさい。一人にさせないように。
はい。
After nodding at Genji's order, Kanon followed after her. He wasn't running, but as he followed her, he tried to search for the cause of the smell in other directions as well.
臭い。
これは確かに鼻が曲がりそうな匂いですね。
Perhaps something in the parlour. Would be my thoughts that then no one would be. There wouldn't be an explanation. No one would have been there to create something in the parlour.
しかし、換気のために窓を開けてもいいものか。
Natsui was reluctant to open the windows in a situation where self-defense was so important.
換気扇を回させましょう。窓を開ける必要はないと思います。
ジョージの兄貴、話しかけても大丈夫かよ。
犯人を探す相談なら構わないよ。
Witch's epitaph, witch's epitaph, witch's epitaph. It seemed that George had managed to climb out of the abyss of sorrow. All that filled his chest now was a quiet flame of hatred towards the culprit who had stolen the lives of one he loved, his beloved parents.
部屋にはチェーンがかかってた。さっき構造を見たが、とても外から細工できる代物じゃねえ。つまり完璧な密室だったってことだ。
そうなるね。バラ庭園の倉庫の時はシャッターの鍵を使用人室からこっそりと持ち出したのだろうとか、あるいは複製の鍵を持っていた可能性とか、いくつか方法が想像できた。でもチェーンは違う。チェーンは一般に浸透した施錠方法の中で最もシンプルに密室を構築できる。
チェーンだけは物理的に破壊しない限り外からはどうにもならないぜ。
I suppose with specialized tools it would be possible.
じゃあつまり犯人は扉からは出入りしなかったってことなのか。
こりゃ面白いや。つい数時間ほど前にも扉以外でどうやって部屋から出入りしたのかってみんなで騒いだ気がするぜ。
Back then, we were all losing our cool, wondering how grandfather had disappeared from his room. A receipt Aunt Eva stuck in the door on a whim proved that the door had remained sealed, and since Aunt Natsui was the only person to enter or exit during that time, she was under suspicion. Aunt Eva proposed a theory about how Aunt Natsui might have thrown grandfather out the window, and left by the door herself. This door is much simpler. It was sealed from the inside by the door chain. The window had also been locked from the inside. Bodies had been inside the room. This time it really had been, without exaggeration, a true closed room. That's right. Include grandfather's disappearance. 3 cases have occurred, and all 3 times the door has been a point of interest. First was the shutter. There was a key in the servant room, and if we assume someone knew about that, this can't really be called a closed room. Also, it can be locked from the outside. Next was the door sealed by the receipt. However, Aunt Natsui entered that room. If grandfather had left through the window or been thrown out, she would have been able to lock the window before escaping. Or, like my theory, grandfather could have hidden until the receipt was gone and left the room later. Basically, this door can be defeated with a handful of desperate tricks. In that sense, you can't really call this one a closed room either. And also, it being closed really hinges on one person's testimony. And now, we have the door sealed with the door chain. Finally, we have to give up. The window, the door, everything had been locked. It's a perfect closed room. The first hadn't been a closed room because everyone could be suspected. The second hadn't been a closed room because Aunt Natsui could be suspected. But this time, no one can be suspected. This was a perfect closed room. The door chain formed a seal that blocked everyone equally well.
なら、犯人は室内に入らずに犯行に及んだ。
They're standing in front of the portrait. Come on, read the epitaph.
部屋の外から何らかの方法で。
確かにチェーンである以上人が通れるほどは開けなくても多少の隙間を開けることができる。
Not with a weapon like that.
ノックして顔を覗かせたところを襲うとか。
Not into the bathroom.
いや、甘いか。
甘いよな。エヴァおばさんの遺体が扉のすぐそばだったならそれも考えたぜ。だがエヴァおばさんは部屋の奥のベッドの上、しかも秀吉おじさんはバスルームだった。チェーンの隙間からでは姿を見ることもできねえし、手を伸ばすこともできねえ。ちくしょう、全然ダメだぜ。さっぱりだ。
Something was tugging softly at my sleeve. Maria, pointing at the epitaph. It was Maria. I called it. She'll be pointing up the epitaph. Wait, wait, see? 6 sacrifices, 2 that remain should be torn apart.
満足って何がだよ。
Couldn't have been a human.
バトラは親族の誰かを疑うのが嫌だから、犯人はベアトリーチェであってほしいと願ったよ。だからベアトリーチェは叶えた。バトラが言った通り、絶対に人間には無理なことをして、バトラに魔女の存在を信じさせてくれた。なのにわがまま。
Tapped Maria, who was laughing unpleasantly, on the head with my fist.
ああ、叶えてくれてありがとうよ。今のはその礼と、不謹慎な時に笑ったことへの教育的指導だ。それより教えやがれ。エヴァおばさんたちの部屋の扉にも、また怪しげな落書きがされていた。
Does that one mean?
あれもまた魔法陣なのか。
あれは特に覚えやすい特徴的な形なんだから、あのくらい知っててほしいね。
No clue.
知らねえから花を持たせてやってんだ。ごちゃごちゃ言わねえで解説しろい。
バトラは暴力的だね。あんまり意地悪すると教えないよ。あいた言うよこのげんこつ男。あれは月の1の魔法陣だよ。
何の意味がある？その魔法陣のご利益は？書かれてるヘブライ語の意味は？
記されているのは旧約聖書詩編第107編の16節。主は聖堂の扉を破り、鉄の栓抜きを打ち破ってくださいました。魔法陣の効用は2つ。1つはいかなる方法によって閉ざされた扉でも開くことができる。
そりゃ便利な魔法だぜ。つまり魔法の力に頼らなきゃ開けぬ密室の扉っていう魔女様のアピールってわけか。
In terms of writing with blood, the only ones it could have been, if everyone was in the parlour, or if most of them are in the parlour, and then you've got the servants and Banjo in the kitchen. So Kanon went back to the kitchen. Kanon and Genji went back to the kitchen. So the only ones it could have been, Kinzo, Eva, or Hideyoshi.
もう一つの効用は？
開かぬ扉を八方塞がりの事態に見立て扉を開く。難解な事態の時に用いることで、それまで思いつきもしなかった解決策を与えてくれるんだよ。平たく言うと、観察力や洞察力、ひらめきや直感を授けてくれるんだね。ベアトリーチェはバトラごとき人間風情に、この扉の開き方がわかるものかって挑発してるんだよ。
よーし、もう黙れご苦労。上等だぜ。その魔女の挑戦受けてやら。
マリアちゃん、この世に魔女も悪魔も存在しない。父さんと母さんは誰かが殺した。それが僕のよく知る人間なのか知らない人間なのかはわからない。でもそのどちらであっても必ずに。
しかしどうやって？せいぜい10センチ程度しか開かない扉の隙間からどうやったら室内の2人を。
それにしても耐え難い匂いです。一体何事なのですか
Kanon and Commissar, who had gone on ahead, realized the smell wasn't coming from the kitchen even before they arrived there. That was because they noticed an even thicker wave of stench rising up from the stairs leading to the basement. They passed on their way to the kitchen.
ボイラー室
Oh,
またボイラーの調子が悪いんでしょうか。
those stairs led to the underground boiler room. The mansion's boiler was old and in poor condition. Both of them had witnessed problems with the boiler on several occasions. They had never smelled the boiler belching out a stench like this before. Slam.
今の音は
Thing they heard from the basement was definitely the sound of a door closing. Kumasawa had phrased it as a question, but she already knew it couldn't be anything else. Kumasawa was so surprised at that sound that her knees gave way yet again and she cowered. After all, that very moment, no one could have been in the boiler room. Just a few seconds ago, everyone had been crowded together around Eva and Tadayoshi's room. So who caused the sound for the door closing just now? There is one person that we know of that's missing, though. Hinzo.
カノンさん
Hinzo or a 19th person. After taking a second to sort out the situation, Canon ran down towards the basement. Since they heard the sound of the door closing just now, there was no sign of anyone coming up the stairs. The person who closed the door had to be inside the boiler room now. The boiler room had been a dead end. Canon wouldn't have rushed in so hastily. Canon was a servant, so he knew. There were two entrances to the boiler room. One that opened to the mansion, one that opened to the courtyard. If he didn't chase them now, he might slip away. Kumasawa reached the same conclusion long after Canon did. She couldn't let him go alone. The thing in the boiler room was the culprit, an opponent who had easily killed 6 adults in the first murder. No matter how Canon confronted them, it wouldn't be a match. Of course, with this argument, even if Kumasawa joined him, it wouldn't change anything. At any rate, after a delay, Kumasawa decided that she mustn't let Canon go alone. She rushed down the stairs. I think I will be ending it there for today. I hope you all enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts are in the comments. I was certainly hoping that they'd read The Witch's Epitaph and then realise the whole 6 being sacrificed and then 2 being torn apart, but it seems not. Maybe we'll see that when we get their perspective again, but I think it's more likely that they'll just continue on to the part and read the second letter. And I don't think that they're going to find a person in the boiler room, but maybe, just maybe another letter. Something else, like some other message of some kind. In any case, I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what your feedback is in the comments, and until next time, see ya.